Hey, this is episode number 49 of Gen X Amplified, and today we are chatting with the one and only Tara Jaye Frank, who is a former executive at Hallmark Cards Incorporated, but now is currently a renowned speaker, consultant, and founder of the movement titled More Than. And we're going to be chatting all about building bridges so we can create more impact on the world. This is going to be such a good one. So, are you ready? Let's do it.
Honestly, I just started it from absolutely nothing. It was a seed of inspiration rooted in my own despair, own intrinsic need to develop a counter narrative.
Welcome to Gen X Amplified, where we bring you inspirational and entertaining conversations with successful Gen X leaders and entrepreneurs.
This is the show created just for you. The powerful generation between the boomers and millennials to help you amplify your story,
Maximize your impact,
and become Gen Exceptional in business and in life.
Now, here's your host, Adrion Porter.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Gen X Amplified. This is Adrion Porter, and this is the podcast and platform dedicated to showcasing and highlighting and amplifying the often overlooked but very powerful generation between those brilliant boomers and magnificent millennials. And as always, I thank you so much for listening to the podcast, for subscribing, for downloading, and just your attention. I truly appreciate it. So I'm going to jump right into it because I am so excited. Excited is an understatement because my guest is a sought after speaker, thought leader, consultant, and leadership development expert. As the president of TJF Career Modeling LLC, she helps leaders, groups, and companies define their vision and unleash human potential. Now, prior to unleashing her greater potential and taking the leap into entrepreneurship, my guest spent 21 years at Hallmark Cards Incorporated, where she was the youngest person in the company's history to be promoted to executive management, and also she became Hallmark's very first African-American female vice president. Wow. Also, as an author, in 2015, she published her first book titled Say Yes, A Woman's Guide to Advancing Her Professional Purpose, which was written as a tool to help emerging leaders reach their own professional higher ground. But what's even more fascinating is her latest stroke of genius and platform for greater impact is the launch of her new project, which is titled More Than, or should I say #More Than, which is a healing movement that was created to facilitate deeper understanding between disconnected people. So everyone, without further ado, please welcome my wonderful and Gen Exceptional guest, Tara Jaye Frank. Tara, how is it going?
It's amazing. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And what a fabulous job you do introducing people. I need you to be with me all the time.
Well, thank you so much. Well, you make it easier for me to do that because you have so many wonderful credentials for me to just talk about and introduce you appropriately. So thank you. First, thank you for being on. I truly appreciate it. And I must say that honestly, very recently just became aware of you through obviously the social webs and through LinkedIn, which I'm a huge fan of. And as soon as I consumed, I think it was a piece of content or an article you wrote, or, we have mutual connections and all that good stuff, which is great about social media. I was like, oh my God, I have to get her on my show. And more than that, and honestly, more than that, I have to just establish a relationship because you are definitely someone that I could learn a lot from. We have very mutual parallel paths, if you will, I spent a lot of years in corporate and recently jumped into entrepreneurship. The corporate world, you've done the same. And it's like great. We have mutual friends, and I definitely wanted to have a conversation with you, not only on the show, but just pick your brain
Well, I'm really happy to be here, truly, and I appreciate you reaching out to me and this platform to have this conversation. So I am ready.
All right, let's do it. So Tara, first, what I want you to do, I think would be very applicable and advantageous to not only me but our audience. If you can just briefly walk us through your professional and personal journey from working at Hallmark Cards to your current efforts as a speaker, as a thought leader, and as an entrepreneur, if you don't mind.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I'm getting better at condensing this story.
Yeah.
A few years ago, when I first got into kind of the leadership development space, people would ask me to tell my professional journey, and I think I took way too long. But I did spend 21 years at Hallmark Cards, as you mentioned. I actually started as a greeting card writer, which I'm probably the first guest you've had who can actually say that.
Wait. So, well, first of all, you definitely are. And just coming off the heels of Valentine's Day, which, you were actually one of those individuals that wrote.
Yes, there are real people at Hallmark, human beings, flesh and blood, yes, who write greeting cards. And a lot of folks don't actually think about that. It is so funny to me. They're like, real people write those cards? I don't know who else would do it, but yes.
That is crazy. Now, I know you're married, but I'm sure like back in the day in high school, like love letters, like when you were young, I bet they were the bomb.
I don't want anybody to, get into a pity party for me, because that is certainly not what this conversation is about. But I didn't really have many people to write love letters to when I was in high school. So I think I was saving it all up.
All right. So I'm sorry. Go ahead. So greeting card writing started. Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah, and then I spent the majority of my career in creative, in various leadership positions in creative. I was an editor, then an editorial director, and a creative director of writing and editorial, and ultimately the vice president of creative writing and editorial, which is around then, when I got promoted to executive management. And just a correction, at the time I was promoted to executive management, I was the youngest person. Since then, there are a couple people who have taken over that title, and they happen to be very good friends of mine.
Got it.
But yeah, and so I was the VP of creative writing and editorial, which was a phenomenal, role for me, and I did many cool things during that time. One of the projects I worked on at Hallmark that kind of sticks with me more than anything else I've ever done is I was Dr. Maya Angelou's personal editor at Hallmark. We actually had a greeting card line with her poetry on it, and we had gifts. And so she and I worked together very closely on that work over the course of 10 years, which started when I was about 25. And went until I was almost 35. So that was kind of an amazing journey. So Hallmark was very good to me, loved it. When I left creative, I spent a few years working in business innovation. Toward the latter part of that business innovation role, I was asked to kind of put pen to paper on what a multicultural center of excellence might look like. This was a time, naturally, Hallmark had already been engaged in the multicultural market. Mahogany had been around, the African-American greeting card line had been around for several years. We had Spanish language greetings. We had, many different types of greeting cards that we created for various segments in the market. But I think Hallmark really wanted to understand, how do we transform everything we are and everything we do to be more relevant to an increasingly, diverse marketplace, and not only in our, culturally specific offerings, but just all over the board. And so I stood up a multicultural center of excellence at Hallmark that was not just about marketing, but also about, cultural embedment and insight development, and generally helping everyone in the consumer-facing divisions understand how we could be more relevant sustainably, over time.
Right.
So I worked on that, and right around in there had a personal shift in my life.
Okay.
And so my trajectory at Hallmark also took a turn, and I didn't feel that I was well positioned to do the multicultural work anymore because I had moved to Dallas. I didn't feel that I could be in the building as much as I needed to be, develop those relationships as much as I needed to. Mm-hmm. And so I became corporate culture advisor for the president at Hallmark, did that for a year working on D&I strategy. And then finally in 2017, resigned fully to just pour myself into, my leadership development work.
Wow. So let me just backtrack, I should say, and unpack a couple of those nuggets, because you made a couple of poignant statements just about within your journey, and obviously there were some transformational moments which I want to really unpack further, and some pivotal moments which I think is always applicable, especially for people in this generation, personally myself, and that's one of the dynamics that we go through is life changes, pivotal moments, career progression, sometimes career stagnation, which I didn't really hear in your journey, but I'm sure it wasn't all roses. But still, you said you had some personal changes that happened that did not enable you to continue to solidify that specific role. You moved to Dallas because, from my understanding, Hallmark's located in Kansas.
In Kansas City.
Kansas City, Kansas. Yes.
Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah. I swear, I always mess that up because I know there's two.
You're not alone. It happens a lot.
Kansas City, Missouri. All right. Apologies for all those Kansas City people.
Right.
But no, Kansas City, Missouri. So you moved to Dallas, and then when you became a corporate culture advisor, I believe that was your title.
Yeah.
Was that still a full-time role, or was that part-time?
No, it was part-time. If you'll allow me, because I think this is an important part of the story. You kind of mentioned, and I think this is true for a lot of Gen Xers. My career started to take a little bit of a turn, mostly because I got remarried.
Okay.
And when I got remarried, I moved to Dallas, Texas. And when I moved to Dallas, Texas, the career trajectory I was on at Hallmark was no longer viable.
Got it.
And the career trajectory I was on was, one that essentially was going to take me to corporate officer. And so I'd been working toward that for many years. It wasn't really a secret to me that was in my future. It obviously wasn't a secret to the people who were leading the succession planning process. But when I decided to move to Dallas, which I did so knowingly, by the way, I understood that this very important life decision was going to disrupt, my career path. But reestablishing family for myself and my children was my number one priority. So I was aware that it was going to disrupt the path, but I had come to peace with that. So when I told them I was going to move to Dallas, I kind of knew that everything that was planned for me was going to have to change. And so what we then did was we created, an opportunity for me to still add value to the company that I loved and the brand that I loved, and to do that from a distance. So the corporate culture advisor was not full-time. It was also remote. I would travel up there to Kansas City periodically and meet with the president and also the people I was partnering with. And we kind of did some work together. But after about a year of doing that, I just realized that as much as I loved Hallmark and as much as I loved the people that I had come to know and trust, that I just really needed to focus, on building my business. And so that's kind of when we parted ways.
Tara, that is so rich in what you stated, because you even alluded to just, again, and not to put, everyone in the same bucket or stereotype. And that's one of the things that I always try to reinforce as far as, what I do with the show, is that everyone, like millennials, can go through the similar dynamics as far as, marriages, making life decisions, boomers, Gen Xers. But, on average, within this kind of midlife, mid-career, your 40s, late 30s, there are commonalities. And a lot of us, we are, some of us are very, not aggressive, but determined to continue to evolve in our professional careers, and we try to take advantage of opportunities, and we're on this trajectory, and we're looking, and we're doing all the right things, we're checking all the right boxes, we're being valuable, and then we're on this succession plan. And then life happens.
Yeah.
And then you meet someone and your eyes gaze at each other, or you hear a voice, or there's a certain smile and a twinkle in the eye. And it's like, oh my God, it's like your emotional and your rational brain are in battle like Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield. And you're battling. It's like the emotional take over. And you're just like, oh my God, okay, forget it. I'm no longer going to be on this path of corporate officer,
Right?
But seriously, that was amazing to me, because I'm sure at that moment, I assume it was a struggle, because again, you've done all these things for so many years.
Right.
You've established and nurtured these relationships. But then, you thought about, okay, at the end of the day, as far as my legacy and what's important to me, one of the things that's important to me, my family, you had to make that decision. Tara, how difficult was it? Did you have a board of advisors personally and professionally that you tried to get advice from? Were there sleepless nights, crying? I mean, can you just take us through emotionally? What was that like?
That's a really good question, because honestly, I did go through a bit of a mourning process.
Got it.
I'm not going to lie. And my husband and I have had this conversation. He periodically, he's amazing, but he'll periodically just stop and kind of say, I want to thank you again for making that professional sacrifice. I know that was a big deal.
Wow.
And of course, when he says that to me, my life is, oh my gosh, amazing. And we'll get to talk a little bit more about the work that I do now.
Oh, definitely.
But I know the whole thing was divine. So I have never regretted that decision a day in my life. And I mean that wholeheartedly. I have never regretted it a day in my life. Mm-hmm. And it was not an easy decision to make at the time.
Right.
But I never really felt that the two choices were on equal footing. Like just because I say it wasn't easy, right, doesn't mean I'm saying, well, they were kind of equal choices and I just ultimately had to pick one. Right. I was always clear about what was more important, but it was still difficult to make that break after having worked for it for a while. And to be honest, it wasn't just about me, and that's kind of a mark of, women who are constructed like I am anyway. It wasn't just about me. I also felt a sense of responsibility to the organization that I was being groomed to take over.
Right.
I felt guilty about that, now people kind of had their minds wrapped around me being the next leader of this very important organization. Mm-hmm. And now I'm going to abandon that. And so I'm not only, kind of changing my own personal trajectory, but I'm also likely going to have an impact, on these hundreds of people, right, who I believe would have benefited, from my leadership. So I had a lot of things going on in my head, honestly. I also am loyal to a fault. So it was hard for me to sit down with the CEO, who right, I greatly respect, and tell him, it's time for me to go for real. Right. So it was not easy by any stretch. But now, looking back, I recognize what was actually happening, right, and it gives me even more faith and confidence in my intuition, quite frankly.
Oh, wow. This is so amazing for a number of reasons. Number one, first of all, thank you for your candor and taking us along that journey, because again, a lot of us can empathize, and it's good to sometimes hear the paths of other people that they've taken that are successful like yourself, to see that these different opportunities and challenges that happen, we all go through them, and listening to how you dealt with that, overcame it, and came out of it blossoming, like a rose is great. Just thinking about that moment, and I think it's a testament to your career progression, and because you said a couple things. Number one, you wanted to still add value to the organization that you were loyal to. And I think that is a testament to the strength of your personal brand at Hallmark and beyond, because a lot of what I do professionally, if you will, is help people build their powerful personal brand. I'm very passionate about that, especially for people that are in mid-career that feel stuck. I want to help them get unstuck. And one of the things that I always champion is it's important to not just be cognizant and to develop and define your personal brand, but have a powerful personal brand. And I say this all the time because the unique characteristics of a powerful brand, and I've broken them down. I'm a framework guy, so I have a framework.
Me too.
I have what I call the Powerful Brand Framework, PB5 for short, and it spells out the word brand, BRAND. And the fourth habit is, for N, is nurture and network your key relationships. And to me, powerful personal brands have done a tremendous job and fabulous job of nurturing that network and key relationships, cultivating those relationships. And obviously, I see you as a powerful brand because obviously you would not have been on that succession plan. You would not have been cultivated to take over in a corporate officer role if you do not value the people that you interact with, if you do not add value day by day. And even just listening to your story, when you made that decision to relocate, to change in your trajectory, you were still very mindful of how your decision was going to affect other people. And to me, that is a testament. So for those of you who are listening, just hearing that story, and you want to do a better job of future-proofing your career and think about how can I develop a valuable, powerful brand, just kind of take heed in the lessons that Tara just talked about in her journey. So I think that is key. So I definitely want to get into your current, because you're doing some amazing things with your current role. And as an entrepreneur, when you took the corporate culture advisor role, and then after a while you wanted to do your own thing, can you tell me, first of all, was this something that you had been thinking about for years? Like you knew obviously you want to move up in the corporate world, but then at what point and what was that transformational moment that you wanted to really take the leap and felt that you could do it, and you identified a problem that you felt you were the best to solve?
I knew for a while that leadership development, talent development was a passion of mine, right? So I've told people that even though I had different functional responsibilities, I led creative product development, I led business innovation, I led multicultural embedment, I was a thought partner on some D&I work with the president. Whatever I was doing functionally or systemically, I always, adjacent to that, had a deep and abiding passion for leadership. Just generally, I was always hyper conscious of the kind of leader I wanted to be. I always paid extra special attention to talent, to ensuring that people had an opportunity to contribute, to creating an inclusive, culture, to making people, or hoping anyway, to make people or help people be passionate about what they were doing. So that was work that I carried with me, as a leader, no matter what I was doing from a functional standpoint. So that's always been with me. I got really passionate about leadership development, and especially for women and people of color, through the multicultural marketing angle. Because what was happening there is, as I was trying to help, the company understand how to really show up, in a new way to the consumer, I recognized, and this isn't, neuroscience or anything, but I recognized that that multicultural marketing and inclusion were two sides of one coin. There was no way for a company to sustainably reach, right, and be relevant to a multicultural marketplace if there were not people on the inside who reflected that marketplace. Right. If there were not people on the inside at the decision-making table, who intuitively understood this emerging marketplace and could help the company not only proactively develop solutions to meet those needs, but also to mitigate risk, also to create a culture where everyone's voice truly mattered, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I got passionate about doing leadership development for women and for people of color specifically, which kind of led me into this D&I space, because I know that companies need this more than they think they do. And so I started to kind of build frameworks and build bodies of work around that. I started actually speaking a couple of years before I fully resigned from Hallmark. So when I moved to Dallas, which was 6 years ago now, that's actually when I started, a side hustle, if you will, right?
Right.
I was working for Hallmark still full time at the time, but at night and on the weekends, I would try to develop relationships. I would try to get these speaking gigs so that I could, grow my credibility and also get more practice doing it. And I would just speak about general leadership topics. I would speak about emotional intelligence. I would speak about, leading with purpose. I would speak about building effective teams. I would do that kind of thing and just share content online, share thought leadership, right? I knew I had opinions. I also had experience as a business leader. And so I would try to share, a provocative point of view about something going on in the corporate world or in the business world. And I would just start to write and share content. And really over time, to the point you made earlier, those relationships and those connections and that following started to build. It does take time and it takes a lot of energy, right, to pour into your brand. But I'd say right now I'm like 5.5 years in on that.
Wow. You're right. I noticed just when I became aware of you and your profile and your brand, and then reached out and established a relationship, I noticed that you definitely have built a following. And but you said something that was so important and key, is that it was not overnight. I mean, this took years. If someone can look at someone's follower count and try to embody that and imitate that and get imposter syndrome, it's like, oh my God, this person has thousands and thousands of followers and I only have a few, and why can't I? Okay, you don't know how many late nights and weekends, like you said, that it took you to establish that content. You don't know how long it took. You don't know the pain and the sacrifice. A lot of people don't know that. And yes, you do have, I would consider, a healthy follower count, which again, numbers, those are vanity numbers, not to belittle your numbers, but I want to make sure people understand that, it's really all about impact and value. But you took the leap and you did something that was so critical and key, and another attribute of someone that really is focused on developing a powerful brand is that you took and did an inventory of your experience, and you had opinions and you had thoughts, and you manifest those thoughts and opinions into content, and you shared it and you amplified it into the world. And because of that, those seeds were planted and the fruits began to blossom. And your content spoke for itself. That's how I became aware of you, through your content.
It's how a lot of people do. And it's interesting. The other thing I did, which I'm sure you talk to people about as well in the personal branding space, is, I'm a speaker and I'm also a consultant. On the speaker side, I do keynotes, I facilitate panels, I create, I customize and deliver workshops. But on the consulting side, I do experience design, right? I design conferences, for companies and organizations. I design comprehensive, customized leadership development programs, anywhere from, a 2-day experience to a 12-month experience that have multiple touch points. So I do all of this work. And one of the things I share with people is, early on, I invested in a web presence because, like an actual website. Because I realized early on, and I think this is still true, if you tell people I do this, right, I'm a speaker or I consult, and then you give them a business card and they cannot find, and you don't have a digital footprint, you don't really exist. Like you're not, they don't believe that you're actually doing what you say you do if they can't find anything online to validate that. If there's no content online attached to your name, if there's no article, right, that you've been quoted in, if there's no video, of you speaking, if there's no testimonial, right, by anyone with a little bit of gravitas, right, about you or the work you do. So getting that digital footprint or establishing that digital footprint is really important these days, because as you and I well know, everything is discoverable. You can certainly take the leap to create your own business, but it takes time to establish a digital footprint. So I just tell people, put your work out there, connect with as many people as you can, share your perspective, get out into the world and make sure that you capture it. So we could go on and on about that, but my digital footprint has been really important for me, because at this point, if somebody says, I think you need to invite Tara Jaye Frank, to speak at your event, She came to speak at ours. She did a really good job. The first thing that person's going to do is search for me.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes.
You know how that works.
Oh, I definitely know how that works. It's so true. I mean, so your brand goes beyond the bio, beyond the business card. You have to back it up. You have to be discoverable. And too often, sometimes people, you can say, well, I'm this and I'm that. And, not to knock anyone's hustle, but to get
right. You got to start somewhere.
You have to start somewhere. But you have to begin, and you have to really put the work in. And so through your company, TJF Career Modeling LLC, you mentioned kind of your two, I guess, verticals, speaking and consulting. What percentage would you say that is your time and effort and problem solving is geared more through the speaking realm or the consulting, or is it 50-50, or how would you divide that up?
Great question. So 2018 was 50-50.
Okay.
2019 is shaping up to be a little bit more like 60-40.
Okay.
60 consulting, 60 consulting.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And 40 speaking. And the reason for that is, once you get even one more client on the consulting side, obviously that takes a lot more time to deliver, right, against those particular projects than it does to do a speaking engagement. So my time and my energy starts to shift, based on how many consulting projects I have in the hopper.
Now, your consulting projects, are you working primarily more with companies, or do you work with individuals as far as a coaching perspective, or is it more company related?
So I don't do coaching anymore. Okay. And I had to learn my way into that, quite frankly. But I've had so many conversations with entrepreneurs, and one of the things I say to them up front, just based on my own learning experience, and I certainly do not profess to be an entrepreneurial expert. Let me just make that plain. I can only speak from my experience. And what I say is, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Because one of the biggest pitfalls, I think, of going out on your own initially is you start to think about all of the bodies of work you can possibly do, right? These are the experiences I've had. These are the things I'm good at. This is what people trust me with. And so then you build this universe of impact, and you realize as you step into it that not only is it prudent for you to try to do everything in your universe of impact, but you also don't equally love everything and enjoy everything. So I started out doing coaching. I don't do coaching anymore. I much more enjoy kind of the group level impact, which tends to be more in an advisory role than individual coaching. So the consulting, when I say experience design, it really is focused on that. So I work with companies and member organizations.
Okay.
Right? A member organization may come and say, we're developing this learning program for this particular target market, and these are our desired outcomes. This is what we're trying to achieve. These are the these are the companies we're targeting, to deliver it for. And then I will essentially from scratch, design a learning program for them to deliver to their clients. But I also work with companies directly who may say, we need to develop our women leaders. We really want to invest in something comprehensive and customized for us. We don't want anything out of the box. We want it to happen over the course of 6 months, 9 months. Here's what we're trying to achieve. Here are our challenges or our issues. And then I will design, fully soup to nuts, a leadership experience for those companies that is customized and speaks directly, not only to their unique challenges, but also to their brand, right?
Wow.
To their culture, to their values.
Wow. That's, for me, just again, I'm a student right now as well, because there's so many great valuable nuggets. It's helping me because honestly, I still a little bit struggle with, when you have so much experience, and again, this is another testament to people in our generation, which is, again, I always say is an asset when you are mid-career, midlife, and you do have sometimes that mid-career malaise. But, what I try to do, and I'm passionate about, is turning that malaise into mid-career mastery and really unlocking your potential. We have so many years of experience and expertise and opinions. It can be overwhelming. But when we launch into entrepreneurship and we're looking for problems to solve, we have so many things that we can do. And some of us have even more. And for me, I've been cursed and blessed with, I'm kind of good at a lot of things, by
that was me. I get it.
By design and by experiences. And it's like, I've struggled with that for so long that you cannot, you have to have clarity, and it's so hard. So for you to say that, kind of shifting away from the coaching service and to just focus on speaking and consulting specifically with leadership development and design and customized solutions, I think that's great. Now, are most of your intake as far as clients, are they primarily inbound because of your thought leadership presence, outbound? Do you do a lot of sales? Like talk to me. Like,
I do not. This is like, I get this question a lot. I do not do a lot of sales.
Wow.
I would say 100% of my work is inbound.
Okay. And what would you say attributed to that?
A couple of things. One, the thought leadership.
Okay.
So if somebody follows me on LinkedIn, they pretty much know me already. Like when folks meet me in person, they're like, I feel like I know you. And I say, well, you do, because I'm the same person, on LinkedIn that I am when you meet me in that professional environment. I'm sometimes professional on there. I sometimes share a little bit of personal, and I'm very much an open book. So people can really get to know me and what I believe and what I think on there. So one is the thought leadership. Mm-hmm. The second is prior, exposure or experiences. So if somebody sees me speak, or they're part of a program that I developed and they know I developed it, that's the second way. And the third is just referrals.
Right.
So if someone says, well, I was looking for a speaker, I literally had 3 calls yesterday from people who said, well, I'm looking for a speaker for X, and I was told that I should call you. I'm like, awesome.
Great.
So yeah, it's, when we talked earlier about putting in the work and putting in the time, I think because I've been at this for a while, and to be fair, I started at this work before I really needed to make money. And I recognize that is not everyone can do that. So I try to be respectful. People are like, oh, how did you just make the leap? And I say, well, I don't know that it's fair for me to say, oh, I made the leap this way and that's how you should do it too. Because I didn't need to make money when I first started. I could just build, I could just share content and make connections and let certain things happen organically. But I know that pressure is very real for some people. And I didn't really have to contend with that. But yeah, I built it over time, and now everything I do is inbound. I've certainly thought about, all right, Tara, well, what does it look like, for you to kind of put a little bit of a sales engine together, and do some actual business development. But I've not really gotten to it yet, because I keep getting calls from really wonderful people who I get to work with, and then I get busy. And then, as you know, I started kind of work on More Than, which has also, grabbed some of my mental and physical capacity. Right.
Yeah. Well, that's what I wanted to jump into. I was going to say, it's a lot of times when people make the leap and they look at other paths of success that they want to learn from, it is really depending upon your situation. Like you said, you really did not have to be as aggressive with generating revenue in the beginning. So, for you, it worked out. But other people, there's more than what meets the eye. And I think that, you have to be mindful of that. And what's great is that, speaking of More Than, let's talk about More Than. Oh, my God. So you have a new project, a new movement, a new brand. Can you just enlighten us and tell us what is More Than a movement?
Yes. So More Than a Movement is, as you mentioned, a healing movement toward deeper understanding between disconnected people. And that sounds good, but let me tell you why I started it.
Okay. Yes.
Over the last couple of years, I have been, Adrion, beside myself with the division in this country. Okay. In the world for sure, but in this country. And I've been beside myself with, the manifestations of it, Like, well, somebody called the police officer on the woman just trying to have a barbecue. The little boy got accused of touching somebody in the booty. Are you serious right now?
Right.
Fights that were happening, people who were cussing folks out on trains because they were speaking Spanish. Like, seriously, I was getting to the point. And then not to mention, obviously, kind of, certain things that were happening in the Black community around, police shootings. The list goes on and on and on. I don't have to bore you with that.
Right.
But I was really feeling distressed, to be honest, behind all of this. And it was creating this intense burden, on me emotionally. So it's important for you to know we have 6 children.
Okay.
We have 4 boys, aged 12, 13, 16, and 16. And then we have 2 girls, women, I should say, 18 and 21.
Okay.
And so being in my skin, right, doing the work I do with leadership development, helping people access their highest self, right, all of this. And then also carrying this emotional burden around the state of our relationships, right, as a nation. It was just too much for Tara. So I started thinking, what are you going to do about it? Like, you can't just hang out with these negative feelings. That is not going to work. And I listened to your podcast with Gretchen Rubin, where she was kind of talking about the different types of people.
Right.
And I recognized so much of myself in that. She was talking about questioners or inners or,
Yes.
people who were internally motivated. And I was just like, all right, that's enough. So I wrote on I was at an executive leadership council women's forum in the summer of 2018. And I'd had this idea about more than, because I was like, all this stereotyping, all this labeling, it's not only hurtful, but it's harmful, right? Like, physically harmful, can get people killed, harmful.
Right.
And we've got to do better than this, as a nation and as a human race, quite frankly. So I had this seed of like, we're more than that. We're more than what you see. We're more than what people assume. So we were supposed to write on this little index card something that we were going to commit to do over the next year. And I wrote on the index card, more than, just do it. And my partner was supposed to mail that index card to me, right, within 6 weeks.
Okay.
So I wrote this down at the forum and I passed it across the table to her. And then 6 weeks later, I get it in the mail. And that's all it says, because I wrote it, right? It says more than, just do it. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to do it. So I got with my design partner, who also helps with social media. And I was like, okay, I talked to you about this loosely. Like, I'm ready. I had somebody help me, write the manifesto. And so honestly, I just started it from absolutely nothing. It was a seed of inspiration rooted in my own despair,
Yes.
and my own intrinsic need to develop a counter narrative, because I realized I could no longer kind of sit back and just receive this negative narrative. As a storyteller, I had to tell a different story. So that's kind of how we ended up there. And more than now, it's growing on me faster than I was ready for, which is exciting. But one stream we have is naturally, the social movement, right? So we're asking people to share their more than stories on morethanAmovement.com. And it's really easy. You just ask a few questions, you answer them. We craft a story based on people's answers to the questions, and they upload a photo.
Right.
So we're sharing stories on social. We have a newsletter for people who subscribe, just, recapping the stories of the week. And I kind of share a thought, right, about building bridges across distance. We also have apparel that we're doing, and that's really just a way for people to self-define, right? To kind of wear out into the world, I am more than whatever you see. I'm hoping over time it will become a signal that I am part of the tribe that not only is more than what people see, but who also believes that you are more than what people see.
Right.
And maybe we can kind of start something there. The third thing, though, and what I'm most passionate about and what's taking most of my time right now is the foundation. So we filed articles for our 501c3 status.
Okay.
What I want to do is take essentially inclusion curriculum to high school students.
Wow.
That has 3 different components. So I want to work with existing learning systems kind of as a plug and play to bring a 3-part, curriculum to high schoolers that first starts with emotional intelligence. So that's about self-awareness and valuing yourself. Mm-hmm. The second is about empathy building and others awareness. So understanding other people's lived experience and developing an appreciation for that. And the third component, and kind of the most fun for me, having a creative background, is a creative problem-solving project.
Okay.
Where they essentially get kind of a societal issue or challenge, and they have to work together in teams across boundaries, right? Diverse teams, to come up with a viable solution to that particular question or challenge. If they successfully complete the project, they get entered into consideration for a Bridge Builder scholarship. So Bridge Builder is the name of the curriculum and associated scholarship. So I'm busy.
That's to say the least. Oh my God, that's great. It started with just, like you said, personal observation.
I was
just tired of it.
And sad, to be honest.
I feel
I was tired and sad and worried.
Wow. Wow. I really, really, really love it for so many reasons. I truly believe. If you look over time, the biggest movements that have made the biggest impact, they usually start from personal pain or personal frustrations, or, those are the best stories, the best, not movements, but brands in general. And for you, just being tired of all the nonsense, and trust me, I feel you. It's been a little crazy lately, but you just didn't sit by and kind of wallow in the frustration, and you wanted to, like I always say, like Gandhi, be the change you wish to see in the world. Yeah. You did something about it. And I love the fact that exercise with the index card, really enabled you and pushed you further to just do it. You spoke to yourself. Yeah. And the extension of that, I think, is wonderful. Making a change, making an impact, adding value at the high school level with these 3 different pillars of EQ, self-awareness, and 2, empathy building, other awareness, and then 3, really looking at solving problems creatively. I think, obviously, I know that is a gap that is so needed to be filled. And by you just doing it and just being more than just talking about it, but doing it is amazing to me. And, and I thought about your movement, too, because, I like to think I like to create movements, and I don't do it intentionally. Like, even this podcast is a movement in a way, and it was driven out of personal frustration and pain. And it's my personal journey. When I reached mid-career, my mid-40s, and when I turned 40, I was frustrated with not seeing a lot of content that spoke directly to my pain points and through my pivoting phase in my life. And and there's a whole nother backstory. Like I'm a generational geek, so I was talking Generation X when I was in my 20s at church, and there's a whole nother story behind that. But I wanted to provide a platform that empowered and inspired sometimes an overlooked community of people. Yeah. And again, and I always say this, and I'm going to tie this into your movement. My stance and my purview is not to bash other generations or stereotype. This was driven to uplift and amplify the virtues of a brand. I'm a brand guy of the brand of Generation X that you don't hear about, because we talk so much about other generations, rightfully so, because we are in this new social media world, and millennials, they do get a lot of the press, rightfully so. Yeah. So my thing is, if you acknowledge one generation, you have to juxtapose that against others. And Gen Xers, we're not talked about, but we are now in the phase of our lives where we can affect change, and we can empower millennials and boomers, and we can look inside of ourselves and realize in our 40s, in our early 50s, we have an opportunity to take the great virtues of being both analog and digital and in leadership positions to create change. And if I could personify the more than a movement into a person and a generation, it would be Gen X, because number one, we're great bridge builders. Yes, and I think it's true. And so I thought about that, and what I try to empower and reinforce is that in the workplace, in the marketplace, if you are quote unquote Gen X, or let's just say midlife, but if you're stuck and you feel that you're in between these two behemoth generations in the workplace of boomers, and then millennials are coming in, and you feel that you don't have a rightful place and you can't add value, look inside yourself. And because of the nature of where we are in this generational curve, we can be great bridge builders between these two disconnected behemoth generations that sometimes are battling each other and arguing with each other, don't see each other's value. You, as a masterful, powerful Gen Xer, be more than the overlooked generation. Be the bridge builder. And I think if I could personify your movement, it would be a woman in her 40s named Tara Jaye Frank. And it would be a Gen Xer. So that's what I was so drawn to what you did, what you're doing, with the movement.
You.
And
Thank
again,
you. I hope more people will join the movement. I just posted a blog. My husband went to Starbucks in his More Than hoodie.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I saw that. Yes.
A white man came up to him and asked him what it was about, and they started talking. And in the end, he said, "Can I give you a hug, brother?" I was honestly like, "That's what this is about for me. It's about piquing curiosity, starting new conversations,
right,
and about being more than we have been to date, and being more than what other people think."
Yeah, it is so true. I love it. I think it's a great movement. I read the article. First of all, I'm in Starbucks all the time, so that's like my home office away from my home office. Yes. And, I'm always in there. But when I read the article, I actually I can see it happening, and it's great that the because there's other interactions that could have come out of there are other manifestations that could have come out of that interaction. And it could have been good, it could have been bad, and especially in this current environment. And the fact that what came out of an observation of a shirt and a hashtag and a line became a moment of just of love, if you will, is so great, and is a testament to the impact that you are looking to make with this More Than a movement. And it's, again, more than just your bio, more than your headshot, more than your title, more than your age, your sex, your orientation, your gender. It's deeper than that. And once we as individuals and a society can look beyond, especially in this world where it's all about the 280 characters now, I guess, in Twitter, but it's more, it's all about the titles and what's in my little bio and the characteristics and my lovely Instagram life. If we can look beyond that, if we can look beyond the aesthetics and look within what makes a person valuable and uniquely wired, and it is join this movement. So I could talk to you for like hours, Tara.
I know. I was looking at the clock.
I know. I'm like, oh my God, we got to wrap. I know. But more than this, your professional career and this great movement, I do want to have one more question that gets a little bit more into your personality. And it's a question that I ask all of my guests on Gen X Amplified. So are you ready?
Yes.
All right. So, Tara, if there was a song that would play every time you enter a room or walk down the street that perfectly fits your story and the brand of Tara Jaye Frank, what song would that be? What would be your own personal theme song?
Who runs the world? Girls. Who runs the world? Girls.
Beyonce.
I actually got the chance to walk on stage to that song, and I tell you what, it made me feel so energized and powerful and purposeful, and so I have clung to it ever since then.
I love it. Beyonce is just killing it. I tell you, she
totally is.
That's a great song. I can actually hear that. All right, Beyonce, Who Runs the World. So again, Tara, this has been awesome. I really love this chat. I've learned a lot. I think not only me, but I'm sure many people in our audience, no matter if you're Gen Xer, millennial, boomer, whoever you are listening in, there were a lot of great nuggets and value points when it comes to how do you address whether you're jumping from corporate to entrepreneurship, if you're thinking about your own journey as building your brand, content creation, focusing on something and a problem you can solve, establishing relationships, building movements. I mean, there's so many great lessons. And so I thank you for that. If you could
Thank
tell,
you. We did cover a lot of ground, didn't we?
we did, but a lot of great ground. If you could tell everyone how they can just keep in touch with your greatness and what you're doing with the movement, with your business, that would be awesome.
Thank you for asking. I am at tarajayfrank.com. My new website will launch in about a week. I'm also on Instagram at Tara Jaye Frank, TaraJaye Frank. I'm on Twitter at Tara middle initial J Frank. And then I'm on LinkedIn, obviously. And then for the More Than, please go to morethan.movement.com and share your More Than story with us. It is very easy, I promise you. We're also on Instagram and Twitter at More Than Move, and on Facebook at More Than a Healing Movement.
Love it. All of these domains and URLs and links will be in the show notes. Everybody, please go to those links and definitely go to morethan.movement.com. Tara, this has been more than an honor for me to have you on. Thank you so much.
I see what you did there.
Oh yeah, you know, I got a little something. Thank you for spending time with me and our Gen X Amplified audience. Take care.
My pleasure. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yes, okay, that was the one and only Tara Jaye Frank. Oh, that was such a great chat. Tara Jaye Frank, President and CEO of TJF Career Modeling LLC, and she is the visionary and founder of More Than a Movement, which is definitely an awesome movement and platform. So make sure you go over to morethan.movement.com so you can share your More Than story. I definitely will be doing that if I haven't already by the time you're listening to this episode. All right, she is really making an impact. All right, so speaking of making an impact, I want to thank you for making an impact by listening and sharing and downloading this podcast. Now remember to get the full show notes of not only this episode, but all the other episodes, and you can catch up to listen. Go over to genxamplified.com, and you can also find Gen X Amplified on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you really enjoy this content, please go and give us a rating and review on iTunes. It really helps us spread the message and share the word. All right, so again, I am your host, Adrion Porter, and you've been listening to Gen X Amplified, the podcast dedicated to you, the powerful and exceptional generation between the boomers and millennials. Remember this. Remember, it's more than a podcast. It is a movement. Take care.